Happy Thursday, y'all. This is Jessie with K&K Logo Designs, and this week is our final week for our quilt top for what's on the cutting table. I'm gonna kind of walk you through how I finished my quilt top, but you feel free to finish it however you want. We have the blocks done. Feel free to finish it however you would like. So this week we needed 1 3/4 yard for our setting triangles, and then we needed 1/4 yard for our cornerstones here, and then we needed 1 1/4 yard for our sashing that is in between our squares. So this week is pretty similar to last week, because last week we did the square and a square units, and this week we will be doing pretty similar to that with our big blocks and just giving them kind of a different border. So this week you're going to cut 24 9 1/4 inch squares out of your whatever your triangle material is, and you'll cut 24 of them. So you'll cut 24 squares that are 9 1/4 inch, and then you're going to cut them on the diagonal, so then you'll have 48 triangles. Now with the 48 triangles, just as we did the square and a square unit last week, that's how we're going to set it up on our blocks this week. So you can either start with the top and bottom or the sides, doesn't matter, but you're gonna pin it on the opposites, and then you'll sew and you will press it, and then you're gonna sew the other 2 triangles and press that, and then you'll have 1 block done. So you'll do that for all 12 of our blocks. Next, you're gonna lay out your quilt top and try different options on where you wanna place the stars. And then you can start sewing the sashing and begin the next step. Next, we're gonna do the sashing. So next, you will cut 20 2.5 inch squares for our cornerstones. So you're gonna cut 20 of those, and then you're gonna cut 31 2.5 by 17.5 inch rectangles for our sashing. So it's 20 squares is what we're gonna need, and then we need 31 for our sashing. 31 2.5 by 17.5. So after you have all of that cut, you are going to add the sashing between the squares. So you'll add this one, this one, this one, and this one. And so you'll have the first row done. And then you'll do that for every single row. So you'll add the sashing between them in the outside. Next, you're gonna take your 2.5-inch squares and you are going to add them to each end of a rectangle block and create this middle strip right here. So when you create that middle strip, check your first one. So I had to check my first one. I laid out my first row and then I laid out my first sewn sash, and I laid that out and I was a little bit off. So I ended up having to remeasure and trim some of my rectangles to make them smaller. And then everything lined up perfectly after that. So just check your measurements before you end up sewing it all together and it not working out at all. And after you have all of your sashes sewn together, you're gonna start sewing them to the rows so you have them all measured out. You start sewing your top and your bottom to row 1. And then I sewed the bottom to row 2. And then I sewed a top and the bottom to the 4th row. So I didn't sew anything to this one. I sewed the top and the bottom to the bottom row and the top and the bottom to my first row. And then I just sewed this to my second row. And then you'll start sewing your rows together. So you'll sew this row to this sash, which is connected to your first row. And then you'll sew your third row, which is connected to this sash. And then you'll sew your last and final row to this one. You'll sew that bottom sashing to your third row to get you your 4 rows. Again, this is completely optional. If you're not comfortable doing the cornerstones, you can do a border. If you're not comfortable doing the setting triangles, that's fine. You can keep them square and just do a border around. But the size is not gonna be the same if you do a 2-inch border around each square. Your quilt top is gonna be a little bit smaller than mine here. So after we have everything sewn together, you're gonna press it, and then you're gonna admire your beautiful quilt top with these awesome cornerstones. This week, I actually took one of our new Patriotic fabrics we got and I used them for the cornerstone. And then I used my favorite line here at the shop, the Patriotic wool tweed. And I used the cream, and I think this one's dark navy. But I used a darker blue, a darker navy, and the Patriotic cream wool tweed. So it gives it a softer look. My blocks are just super loud, have a lot going on. So I had to do something a little bit more subtle, but I brought the pop back with a busier cornerstone, kind of to focus it back on all of my blocks. So that is our star quilt top. We would love to see if anyone has any of the stars finished, or if you also finished the quilt top. And that's what's on the cutting table at K&K Logo Designs. Congrats to anyone who finished it, and I hope you guys enjoy this awesome quilt top that will be here at the shop.